All right, so today we're going to be working on the Mustang, and we're going to be doing a boost controller. So I'm going to hook up the 3-port and hook it up to the Microsquirt and possibly go drive it. I want to go through the Microsquirt wiring and whatever else I got to do. So let's do that. Okay, so we have the setup here. The wastegates are kind of buried down in the bottom. So I do have the bottom of the gate already plumbed, and it makes about 5 pounds, 6 pounds as it sits right now. So there's probably a 6-pound spring in each of the gates, and that's what it makes. So what I'm going to do, since I already have the line here, you can see it comes off of a line here from the back. It comes to a T, and then one goes to each of the bottom of the gates. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this here. I'm going to add the boost controller solenoid in, and then I'm going to run a separate line with a T going to the top of the gates. If you're not familiar with what any of this means, this is a wastegate. It basically wastes exhaust gas through this little port here. There's a valve inside there, just like a valve inside of an engine, but a little bit bigger. And what you do is there's a little diaphragm inside here. You put manifold pressure to the bottom. When it starts to see boost, it pressurizes the bottom of this little diaphragm and starts to lift and open up the valve. So you can control this by bleeding off pressure from the bottom of the diaphragm, or you can do it by adding pressure to the top of the diaphragm. So 6-pound spring, when you put manifold pressure to this, when you're making boost, this should essentially open up the valve and then bleed it off until you see 6 pounds. So 6 pounds here, you see 6 pounds of boost. What you can do, bleed it off, or you can add pressure to the top. If you double this, you put 6 pounds here, 6 pounds here, then you can make 12 pounds. So that's kind of what we're going to try to do today. So I'm going to be using an electronic 3-port. This is going to be controlled by the computer. So you put a ground to one of these, and then you have a wire that goes to the ECU, and that's what actually controls the opening and closing of the solenoid. So this one is normally closed. When it sees the signal from the ECU, it opens at a frequency, and you can change it in the computer. So basically going to be full manifold pressure going to the top to open the gate, and then this is going to be opening and closing, adding pressure to the top of the gate to close it. That's normally what you do. Another type of boost controller, if you don't know, is just like the manual boost controller, ball and spring type. There's a little spring inside here, and when you push this down, it pushes the spring into a little check ball, which closes that valve, and then it restricts the flow. So that's how you would increase your boost. So the only issue I can see right now, which I might try to do something a little bit different, is using the 3-port. I'm only going to be able to essentially, theoretically, double the spring pressure to 12 pounds, and I'm going to want to run this higher than 12 pounds. So let's just get started on hooking up the wastegates, and then I'll show you what I want to try to do. I'm going to just take this line, and then I'm going to run it right behind my water pump. That's where this other line goes, and I'm going to try to follow the same path. Let's see if I can get it to come out near the same spot. So that line is ran. I'm going to hook it up to the barb on the bottom of the wastegate. I'm trying to keep it away from the exhaust heat, so it's kind of going the opposite direction. So that one's pushed onto the barb. I'm going to try to make sure I run it in a safe direction. So I'm going to leave a little bit of extra line, like maybe an extra 2 inches before I make any cuts, just in case I got to shorten it up. And if I want to make any extra cuts, or like try different stuff, or pull it apart, put it back together, I'll try to leave a little bit extra, because sometimes you got to cut them off of the barbs, and if you want to reuse it, it might end up being too short and tight. So I'm going to do that. I do have another O'Reilly's T here, and then I'm basically going to run this other one kind of the same way. I have this side going down and around the frame rail, where the tube the tube front rail. I'll do the same with this one. Try to keep it away from the exhaust. I also, right now, I don't even have a wastegate dump just because the wastegates are basically kind of angled and pointed down anyways. I don't have a dump pipe on them at all. That's how I roll, I guess. So do the same thing, leave a little bit of extra space, cut it off. Try not to cut your finger off. It's a suggestion. You can do whatever you want. Maybe a little difficult to see, but here's the new lines that I just ran. So these are going to the top of the gate, and then this one here is going to the bottom of the gate, and it's currently hooked up right here that goes to the back of the manifold. So this T right here I added one day at the track because that's one way you can increase the boost pressure, is by limiting the amount of pressure going to the wastegate. This didn't actually work. Typically you can add a T in there and you'll gain like a couple pounds of boost. Didn't gain anything, actually. Didn't do a damn thing. So I'm gonna repurpose this, leave it in there so I don't have to cut any more line. I'm going to run, this is gonna be where it's different. I'm gonna run this one to the top of the gate, so I have like full manifold vacuum and boost pressure there all the time. And then I'm going to run the line going to the bottom of the gate on the 3-port controller. So hear me out here. All right, so I'm gonna do it a little bit different. So this is kind of where you normally put the 3-port boost controller to the top of the gate and you add dome pressure. What I'm gonna do is similar to how I had it hooked up in the truck with the manual controller. So in the truck I had this end going to the intake manifold, and then I split it here. I had a little check valve Y splitter guy. Then I went to the boost controller. I had the boost controller going to the bottom of the gate, and then I had full line pressure always going to the top of the gate. So what that did was give me a minimum of like pressure of double spring pressure. So with the valve, with the controller all the way open, I would basically be like putting one to the top and one to the bottom. Full open, so it would double spring pressure. And then when I tighten down the boost controller, it would send less pressure to the bottom of the gate, and it would allow me to get more than double spring pressure, if that makes sense. So you can normally do that with a 4-port. You can go spring pressure up to like 3 times spring pressure. The difference here is I'm only going to be able to go from double to like triple. So this one I had the same springs that are in here. It was like around 8-ish pounds with just one line hooked up to the bottom, but I was running this truck around like 18, 20 pounds. I've seen it up to 22, 24 on accident when I went too far with the controller. So that's what I'm gonna try with this one. So if it's working in my head right, I should have minimum 12 and be able to go to essentially the moon with completely closing the solenoid going to the bottom of the gate and then forcing all the pressure to the top of the gate. So that's what I'm going to try. We'll see if it works. The big difference there is going to be in the computer. So typically you would be increasing like your duty cycle and your boost values. So 100% would be full boost, where I'm going to have to do it the opposite way. 0% leaving this closed would give me more boost. So it'd be opposite, and I can go over that too. I'm going to try that. And it shouldn't be a huge deal if it doesn't really work exactly like that or I don't like it. I'll just switch the 2 lines. So that's all I really have to do is whatever's on the output side, just switch them. So that'll be good. Spit shine. And I'll hook this up. Then I'll just have to cut this other line and put the controller in. Okay, so this is all in there now. I did take the wire, you can see the brown, and then it goes into the loom down there, and then I just ran it inside the loom all the way through the firewall. So let's go inside the car. Okay, so this is kind of ugly here, but what I did was I ran this wire in, that's from the solenoid up front, and then I ended up opening this harness back up, and then I'm using my F-idle pin location. So this is basically the same location that runs the idle air control. This is a Microsquirt that has the idle air option. So I'm going to be eliminating the idle air option, so I ran this other wire out, and that's what I'm going to be using, and I'm going to use the F idle pin in the computer to run the boost controller. All right, so next what I want to do, and I think I actually said it wrong earlier in the video, that the power would go to the computer and it would be grounded over here. So I'm verifying the wiring. It's actually getting a ground from the computer, and then I'm verifying it with a positive here. I just have a alligator clip jumper. So what you can do when you're in Tuner Studio, you go over to CAN bus test modes and then output test mode. Then you can test all the inputs and outputs. So you can adjust the pulse frequency, duty cycle. So I'm going to click test enabled. And then I'm going to change the frequency over to 85 here. And then you can click on pulsed. And then you can actually hear the solenoid activated. So then I'll come back over, turn it off, and that's how you verify that it actually works. So the one issue that I am going to have with this is that the way that it would be set up, because it's opposite the way that it should be, it would essentially be running all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little valve, this little pressure control valve. This is from Snow Performance methanol injection kit that I had on the truck. Not using the meth kit anymore because the pump failed. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into a switch that's going to activate the boost controller. So Microsquirt does have boost control settings. So if this fails or the solenoid fails, I still have boost control. But this will enable the boost controller to start working once it sees a little bit of boost. And you can set this thing. It's got a potentiometer in there and it's adjustable down to just a few pounds. So I'm going to add this thing. Okay, so this part is all done. I did run this white wire. This is the power. It goes through the loom here. Then it goes down to the bottom side of this switch. So I just used this vacuum port here. I had it capped off before. But I got that thing wedged in there pretty good between my throttle bracket, so it doesn't really move. I still have access to the adjustment set screw back there, so if I want to adjust where the switch comes on, I can do that. Finish buttoning up all the wires there, and everything kind of taped up so it's not all ugly. And this car is, I might take it for a drive tomorrow. So next video will probably be that, taking this thing for a drive. And then we'll test the boost controller settings. I can show some of that stuff. I can try to give it a start. It's probably not going to want to start because I don't have the idle air motor hooked up anymore. But we'll see what it does. I'll probably have to hold the throttle open a little bit. So yeah, I'll have to work on that a little bit, but it starts as soon as I put a little bit of foot on the foot. So there we go. So yeah, that's it for this one. I am going to have to adjust the tune, maybe even the throttle blade a little bit, because it doesn't use the idle air motor anymore. So probably going to have to hold the throttle open a little bit till it warms up, then it should run. But I'll go over the tune again and test it tomorrow, probably after work tomorrow, and play with the boost control settings. I'll show some of that next video. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.